Welcome back to Earth Station Trek, a show where we trek from the early days on NBC to the future on Paramount Plus and everywhere in between. I'm Charles Kelso, and it's my privilege to introduce the Earth Station Trek crew. Keith Johnson.
I make this podcast what it is, not the other way around.
Alan Seiler.
Alan's greeting on Earth Station Trek, redacted.
And Veronica Dashel.
Keith stole my quote. I had a quote prepared. And Keith
sorry.
stole.
Oh, no.
Say hi instead.
Hi. No, I didn't have a quote prepared for the opening. I had a quote prepared for the end.
Well, now you
For the
have
first
an
time
hour,
ever.
so
Nobody will
find another one.
remember it an hour from now, so you're free.
welcome back, everybody. We're
the
back
alien,
with another
Veronica.
Earth Station Trek. We've got a little bit of Star Trek news and games. We got a couple of Star Trek games announced.
Cool.
Star Trek Infection, which is a VR game coming this year, and
Oh,
then
that
Star
sounds
Trek
great.
Star Trek
Infection.
Voyager: Across the Unknown, a story-driven survival game coming to consoles and PC.
Chuckle has no interest in any of this.
No, but it's
Wow.
interesting.
Don't you just love the name of a game that has infection in it? I mean, that's
Right.
like run out and buy it.
Maybe
Buy
you
it
get
for
to
the
be a
whole family.
doctor on a starship and you get to solve infections and do
No
cutting
way.
people open.
There'll be
That'll be
zombies.
so
What are you talking
It'll
about?
be zombies.
Well,
right.
well, Veronica, the thing is now, it depends on which doctor, because if you're at Mbinga, you get to kill people too. So,
That's true. That's true.
but he can't
All right.
recall.
Keith, do we have any This Week in Trek this week?
Yeah, we did. Just a couple of things here.
Okay.
Do this real fast. One of my favorite episodes from the original series. So I just bring it up because I just love it so much. And it comes into play with something we've talked about a little bit on the 17th of August, 1966, submitted to Gene Roddenberry for approval, was the final draft of a little episode called Dagger of the Mind.
Good one.
And for Veronica, if that doesn't ring a bell, it's the one with the evil doctor who put mental patients in a chair and then programmed them, like he programmed Kirk with some lights. And what else goes on there? Helen Noel's in it. You don't remember
Spock's
this?
mind melded with a human for the first time.
That's it. And
For the first time.
yes, that's why I wanted to bring this episode up. Spock mind melded with a human. And you know what, guys? Even I'm starting to get worn down. I'm not even going to babble too much about how Spock, the whole conversations like Spock this is a deeply personal theme to the Vulcan people, blah, blah, blah. And it kind of felt like it was the first time he did it outside his race, but we'll leave that alone. Anyway, it was the first of the mind melds. Great, great, great episode. This is kind of cool. 18th of August, 1992. And to talk about being excited, this was the start of principal photography for Deep Space Nine. The Emissary.
Yay!
Nice.
Yeah.
Deep Space Nine reference.
And, well, I guess you could say this about any Star Trek. I started to say Deep Space Nine could almost be called the grand experiment of Star Trek. But you know what? They said that about TNG. And they said that about Voyager. And they said that about Discovery. And they said that about the 2009 movies. Every new iteration of Star Trek, at one point, people are like, it'll never last. Or it won't succeed because it's not what came before.
Mhm.
And Deep Space Nine now is so many people's great favorite series.
Right.
Don't usually do birthdays, but this one I think is relevant. 19th of August, 1921, El Paso, Texas. It's the birth of Gene Roddenberry.
Hey.
Great
I would
bird
say
and
that's a
elephant.
little bit important.
Yeah, that's a big one. And I don't know if there's something in the water, but when I was doing research, this was funny. August 19th, 1921, Gene Roddenberry. 1924, William Marshall. 1938, Diana Muldaur. 1952, Jonathan Frakes. All born on I don't know what's special about that day.
Okay.
That's a Star Trek day.
Yeah, I guess I could get something out and look at it. And then the last one, another one of my favorites, and it deals with, we talk sometimes about Klingons and stuff. This, where I'm going to go for I said, this introduces the second Klingon from the original series that set the pattern for Klingons, in my opinion. And that was the draft was delivered in 1968, The Day of the Dove, which
Okay.
introduced Kang, the second great Klingon after Kor.
Hey, you're skipping over Koloff.
Well, yeah,
And
yeah.
Korax.
Well, yeah. See, there's the trilogy to me. There's Kor, Kang, and goodness, I'm gonna have to jump all the way up to like Martok or something. I don't know. Maybe I don't know if Worf counts, but
Klingon?
Well, like who establishes a
Are you on the High
pattern.
Council?
I just like Kang, and he and Core are such a great contrast. Core is a soldier who loves the job. Kang is real serious. I've
Mhm.
always loved Michael and Sarah in
Yeah.
that role.
Those are great.
That's this week in Trek history.
Awesome.
Well,
Well-
we do have a little bit more news,
Oh, great.
and it's us news, which we
Ooh.
shared for the first time last week, and that is that we are going to be doing an appearance at Infinite Realities, which is a comics and games store in Tucker, Georgia. We're going to be there Saturday, September 27th. We're going to be starting at 1 o'clock, and we're going to be doing a live podcast. So if you want to be part of a podcast recording, you can comment, and if you wanted to, you can always call, and that way your voice or your feedback is a part of our show. But now you can do it in person and verbal, and your voice will be on our show, and that would be amazing. And our topic, since we are at the Infinite Realities store, is the infinite realities of Star Trek. And I will give full credit to Chuck for coming up with that amazing topic. Great job, buddy.
Thank you.
So I hope you'll be there Saturday, September 27th at 1 o'clock. It's going to be so much fun. We'll have copies of our book there.
Yes.
Wait, hang on. That book, hang on. That book, which is no longer coming in April, has already showed up in April. So come and join us. It's going to be fun.
And
An
at the end of it,
full of Trek.
yes, and if at the end of it, if Veronica can't think of a closing, you can just shout one out for her.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. We can have like a little contest.
Okay.
Ooh, yes.
Oh, I love it. That's great. Chuck, you're just full of great ideas.
Spinning gold over here. All right. Well, this week we're talking about the latest Strange New World episode. What is Starfleet? So, spoiler alert for that. Now, Mark had a few comments, I guess, to get it started that are on.
Hey, Mark.
He says hailing frequencies open, but also he says Babylon 5, season 2, episode 15. And now for a word.
Yep.
An ISN documentary team shadows the B5 crew and an unexpected battle erupts. So what are you saying, Mark? What are you saying? That what this episode, you've seen it before? Is that it?
That's a
Star
good
Trek
episode.
never does something that someone else has done before.
Certainly Stargate's never done anything like this.
Right.
Well, and in all fairness to Star Trek, the documentary is such an established thing, even outside of science fiction. So I don't really consider them ripping off anybody in this case.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I want to start by saying, Chuck, you usually say, this is the episode we're going to talk about. What did you guys think of this one? I think going into this, you had more reservations about this than the rest of us did. So I would like to hear you first. I want to know what you thought about this episode. So why don't you start us off?
Okay. Well, I guess there's two ways to look at this one. Either as just the Star Trek adventure that's going on, which I thought was very good, or the documentary aspect of it, which I thought was done fine. I don't think that Beto is a particularly good filmmaker, and and I think it's very surface level. It's basically the same arc they go through in the Stargate episode, where we're very critical. Are they doing the right thing? Are they? And then by the end, like, you know what? They're all good people who are trying their best.
Yes.
Which is that's not challenging the audience in any way. You're not challenging me. I'm not starting this going, I'm going to sit down this week and find out if Starfleet really is a colonial empirical force, or if they're good, because I've been watching Star Trek my entire life. I already have a feeling that Star Trek's going to come down on the side of Starfleet and they're going to be fine. And I think that I felt like it was in a lot of ways very surface level. I thought it was well shot. I actually really enjoyed the format this week, largely because we got a lot of close-ups of like consoles and like dedication plaques and little details you don't usually see.
Yeah.
So I thought that the shaking up of the format was very useful in that respect. But I don't think Beto isn't going to win an award for this documentary.
Well, let's face it. This is a super quick turnaround because he only started filming this like earlier in this season.
Right.
And it was apparently during that 3-month hiatus between episode 1 and episode 2, where there's a time jump from the end of episode 1. And so he starts somewhere in there.
Okay.
So it's not like he's been working on this for a while. And I think the quality reflects the fact that he did this super fast.
Right. And really the quality of the as a film, I think, really could play into the character as well, because he's very young.
Mhm.
And it's a very it's almost like if Jake Sisko had done a documentary, it wouldn't be it would be the same sort of thing. And so you're a young, naive character with an axe to grind, within a person. By the end, he's interviewing himself, giving his opinions, you know.
Right. And I have later on, I have comments about both of two things that you just brought up.
Okay.
I have things to say, but I don't want to jump into that too quick. So,
Okay.
Keith, what about you? What did you think?
I agree exactly what Charles said. My notes said it was fine. And the Jikaru, the whole story with the Jikaru would have been, I enjoyed the episode, but I think the Jikaru storyline would have been better shorn of the documentary thing. I think the documentary thing got in the way of that story. Okay. And I don't think it worked quite as well as they intended. It still is a good episode. And it's funny, Charles, you said that about him, because I found the filmmaking, especially for somebody who was, and you guys forgive me, I will always call Starfleet military. So if anybody wants to argue with me, that's just me. Especially for a documentary that the military acknowledged or proved, his filmmaking was a little amateurish. And the only thing I can say, and I kept putting in my notes, is, well, maybe that's his personal style. Because it was a little bit too much fast, a little bit too much quick quotes. And Alan, I think I'm just like you. We really got to talk. I got to talk about that ending where it was almost like a therapy session for the couch for him. So
the guy making a documentary.
Yes, yeah, we got to talk about that. But I think Charles summed it fine. It was serviceable. It was cool. And don't let me forget the end. I do have comments about Pike again not being central to his own show. But overall, I thought it was, good. I think Charles is right. Serviceable episode.
Veronica.
I like the aliens, especially the Floaty Fly one.
Oh,
and then the other ones that came in the ship. They had some really cool. They had strange new aliens, at least.
Yes.
And a strange new world, technically.
Yeah, I saw it. Briefly.
Right.
Yeah,
very briefly.
I think, Veronica, what you said is true. It reminds me of other spacefaring creatures like Tin Men from TNG, or Gontu, as they called them. And then that one creature in TNG, remember the one that was having the baby and attacked the ship because they had to kill it, and then they had to cut the baby out. So I agree with you. I was impressed with that alien, the Jikaru. That was cool.
And it was a cool sci-fi story. And that, like, they were treating it first like it was livestock, but it was a super weapon. They were, basically breeding this thing to be a super weapon for their war. And I thought that's a good sci-fi story. And the fact that the other side is involved with the Klingons gave it sort of like that Cold War TOS feel. Right. So I thought it's very fitting for the time. I thought, it's good. Alan.
Okay. Well, to jump off of what you just said about the Jikaru being a super weapon, it was manipulated to be that. It isn't naturally that. They altered it to become that. And I think that one of the drawbacks, and I'm not saying this in a negative way, one of the drawbacks about this episode being a documentary is that you miss, there's a key moment in this episode that I wish we had seen in full, and that is when Pike is consulting with the Admiral about, our mission has changed because of this creature. And I think that discussion would have gone very, very differently if this hadn't been, because, the Starfleet side of the discussion was redacted from the video. So we only hear Pike's side of the conversation, and he can't say anything that's going to, they can't script for him anything that's not going to work for this episode type. But to have gotten into a discussion about, or a debate with the Admiral about how at this point, this creature wants to die and it has asked for our help. We are now in a situation, the whole mission has changed because basically this is a call for help. This is, and that changes everything. This is basically a distress call, and we have to give aid when distress is called for. And I think that it would have been a really, really great Pike moment had we gotten that. But of course, we couldn't have gotten that because of the format of the episode.
Right.
Yeah.
overall, though, I really enjoyed the episode quite a bit, and I thought that I have some things to say, and it's all about toward the end of the episode. But overall, I thought it was really well done. I thought that it was well shot. The direction was great. The use of camera was obviously very different for this episode because the episode asks for it to be different. And I thought that everything technical on the technical side really rose to it and made this a great episode. So before we go too far, let me get some comments from our dear viewers. Michael Phillips says, my first thought was that they were doing something or the same thing as, and now there we go, B5, but it was done really well. Possibly my favorite episode this season.
Wow.
He says, my nitpick is that it starts off clearly edited to make Starfleet look bad and then ends by making Starfleet look good, which really wouldn't happen. It would be consistent throughout. That's one of my comments that I was going to make, and I totally agree with you about
I agree,
that.
Michael. It didn't feel like that documentary would have been approved by the military in that format.
Yeah.
Not even approved by it, but you put the editing together after you've done all the filming. This documentary works on the premise that Beto comes to a realization 3/4 of the way through his own film, and the ending is changed because of that. And that's not what would happen in a final edit.
Yeah, to cross the streams again, even though we're talking about the Stargate documentary with the actor whose name I can't believe it escaped me, the actor who played Faja in TNG, the one who took Data. That was really good because General Hammond, and he had a military attaché with him the whole time. And to what you're saying, Alan, in Stargate, they absolutely showed the military basically helping him put that thing together the whole show. And Hammond even sat down and approved it before it got released. So I think a little bit of that was somewhat missing here, just a little bit.
Yeah, but also in Heroes, though, you get like the out of documentary perspective of the characters making the documentary. Whereas this one, it was as if you're watching the film.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. This is a presentation of the final film.
Right.
Michael's final comment was, it's like he changed his mind midway through editing rather than midway through his experience. Exactly.
He did. Well, he did. Yeah.
And Mark says they had a chance to address Ortegas's PTSD and completely whiffed it.
100%.
Well, Mark, that's because here we go again. And I guess this is the thing. So many of the problems, I have a lot of nits with this episode, even though I like it. So many of the problems with the episode, I kept writing down, well, they let her young brother interview the crew. And maybe that's the problem because he's a young filmmaker, because you don't let somebody interview their own sibling like that because he's bringing a lot of personal stuff in. I agree with you, Mark. I thought they whiffed it too, because remember we've been saying, especially you guys been saying every week, Ortegas lost her hand. They haven't really said much about that. And
this is the first time that was brought up since the beginning. Veronica, did you have some thoughts about that?
I'd completely forgotten that she lost her hand.
See, so is she.
Like, I didn't even remember why they were commenting on her hand until you guys started mentioning it here. I was like, well, that's right. She got stabbed probably with it. Sure. But no, she lost it.
It got digested.
Yeah, a quick aside about the actress. Alan, I think you've said this a lot too. She's not really used a lot, but you know what? She has a presence.
Yeah.
And they give her like 5 seconds an episode, and she holds the screen.
Yeah.
And I'm like, can we please develop her a little better than always making a little goofy remarks like, here I go, we're gonna die. She's got so much more potential in her. I
had the thought, are they setting her up to ride a motorcycle in a future episode?
100%. 100%.
Because that happened in Star Trek Beyond.
That's true.
Oh no,
that's true.
And she's building a motorcycle in her giant quarters.
Well, Lanier did that with Garibaldi in B5, so it happens.
That's true.
She'll jump the motorcycle over the cetacean ops tank.
Exactly.
That's how she overcomes PTSD.
Right.
I did notice that almost every time when they came back into the bridge, Ortegas was like crouched over her console, like she was ready to take action, like immediately, like in a moment's notice she could just like twitch and go.
Yeah.
So let me get this comment from Michael, because this is really interesting. He's written a few books, and he mentions one of them. I have to say, if I didn't know better, someone read my book When Morpheus Overslept, in which the Gorathki tired of being used as a weapon and threw themselves into the sun. Ooh.
Okay. Wow.
You can sue, Michael. Get on it.
Yeah, that'll work.
There's a lot of fodder for other stories with this incredibly powerful being that they were trying to use as a weapon, because they did mention children, and so there's a lot of potential there.
Offspring.
Yeah. I also thought they did something that was very interesting with he was first doing the data. He mentioned that the invading planet lost something like 194,000 people, and the planet that was invaded lost 9 million people. So I could see why they're a little desperate, even though they're being concretely callous and cruel to that creature.
Yeah,
I could see why.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that if this had been a standalone episode centered around that situation, you would have gotten more of that moral interplay.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it seemed weird that they spent all this time on this creature on this far off planet that they found that they decided could be a weapon if they like reprogrammed it. Like, where did you get to that, and why did you not develop your own weapons instead? What happened to that middle ground?
No, I agree. And also, Alan says something, and I wonder if I missed it. Alan mentioned, because I said I felt the same about wanting to have a conversation between Pike and the Admiralty, because forget whether that creature had been programmed or not. Did Starfleet know going in that was a sentient creature?
And that's a good question.
Did the creature say, okay? I mean, or do they think of it as a sentient creature? Do they think of it like we think of a dog or a horse? Because we don't think of them as having, their own agency.
That's a very good point, Keith. But you remember when the monster basically is introduced to us, the viewing audience, in discussion amongst the bridge crew, Spock is the one that used the word livestock. So I don't think that the directives that came from Starfleet included information about its own sentience. I don't think that was either a known thing or it was a covered up thing. I'm hoping it's not known.
It had to be, because later on, Pike was kind of casually saying, hey, what about that neutralizer thing that's attached to it? And I'm thinking he can't know that thing is sentient, because he's basically like, and then when they find out it's a shock collar, but you would think that if he even had a hint that it was sentient, he wouldn't be so blasé about the fact that they artificially tried to calm the creature down. So yeah, you're right. Good point. They did say livestock. But again, to Alan's point, especially like in TNG, even if it was livestock, and if we'd had time for a conversation, because Picard would have had a conversation about this, whether it was sentient or not, 100%. He would have said, I have some problems with this. This is strange. Of course, it'd probably be Nechayev yelling at him, saying, shut up and get it done.
Yeah, you'd have had that scene with him talking to the Admiral. You'd have had a scene with Alien in the ready room or the conference room, making the case for their people have lost 9 million people. And like you can sort of see the episode play out in your mind, but that's you're right. I think that's a lot of that is sacrificed for the documentary, because they're focusing more on the crew's reactions to these things that are going on rather than the story itself.
Yes. Yeah. And that's always a danger of doing this kind of episode, is that, especially if you're focusing it on a storyline that is as strong as this one could have been. If it had been fully told, this would have been really, I think, a classic episode. It had the potential to be, anyway, just like the courtroom episode last season. It had the potential to be that, because there is a lot of fodder here for moral debate, and I think that it could have been really strong. Not that it wasn't for what it is, but I think that focusing it on this kind of story makes it, I don't know, feel like a detriment almost. So I want to talk a little bit. I'm sorry that I'm kind of running this. I didn't mean to be, but I think one of the things that's interesting about this episode is that because of the nature of it, because of the documentary style, it focuses heavily on individual crew members. And I want to know what you guys thought about some of the ways that these characters are featured and any maybe new information or new revelations that we got because of this. Like, and I'm thinking particularly of M'Benga.
I made several notes about that. One of the things I had was, and I will say just to summarize, what I like about this episode is somewhat counterbalanced by what I don't like about how they run the new franchise, which is sometimes their emotional stuff that they get into. One note I made to jump back real quick is Spock. I do not believe in any universe that Spock would tell a story about running off as a child and cutting himself to a documentary crew for all posterity because he's a Vulcan. He would not have done that. It just would not happen. No. It just wouldn't happen. But
that wouldn't have happened to him. He wouldn't have done that, period, much less told a story about it.
Because he is a Vulcan. He also knows his father, who's an ambassador, would probably see this. And he wouldn't want other people on the ship or in the Starfleet. He just wouldn't. It's not what Spock would do. Yeah. Why am I bringing that up? Only because their slight focus on making Spock and some of the people a little bit more emotional, getting a little bit too much into their feelings than I'm used to, it comes out. But they held it together just enough where it didn't bump me too much. Also, Spock would never let them film him and La'an in what was kind of an affectionate moment in his quarters. It just wouldn't happen.
But also, Spock absolutely never would have told Droxine on Cloud City about Ponfar.
Well, that's true. But at least they were alone. Can you imagine if they had filmed that and they had this close up? And he's like, yeah, every 7 years, but baby, I can do it anytime I want. Yeah.
Yeah. I did have a similar thought about Spock speaking so openly about his childhood and stuff. Yeah, but I mean, the fact that if this happened to him in his childhood, that is consistent with what Sarek was saying to Picard, that Spock would disappear into the desert, and that was like a big part of the things that would happen to Spock when he was growing up. So I think that's he didn't talk about the cutting, but I mean, I didn't really have a problem with that whole scene because of that, you know.
But we've gotten hints before that he was a sensitive child, right?
Right.
So I don't think that the story that he told is necessarily incongruent with what we know of Spock, but I do think him telling it on camera is incongruent with what we know of Spock.
With hardly any prompting.
Real quick, Alan, to your specific question, though, M'Benga is very interesting because this guy, we know he kills at the drop of a hat. I still think it was a mistake for him to clearly tell Pike that he murdered the Klingon general. I think that was a mistake for drama. But to what you asked, Alan, here we go again, another good actor. I did write down how did Umberto even know to ask such probing questions like, hey man, have you ever turned the camera off? Have you ever erased? I don't know where did he even get the knowledge to ask that question? I have a problem with that. Yeah. But the actor playing M'Benga sold it. And I give him credit. He sold it. That was a powerful moment.
And he never lied. That was was the best part.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, he had a really good performance. Babs was great in this. But that's another example, I think, of Beto being just a terrible filmmaker because he's trying to find out if Starfleet is violent, if Starfleet is empirical, and he's got this like assassin. He's interviewing him. He knows his whole backstory is redacted, and he was like, codenamed the Ghost. Have you ever shut off the cameras in sickbay? I don't remember. Okay, well, thanks. I'm gonna go talk to Uhura now.
Right.
Run away very fast.
How does a dude who's like 22 years old, who's not a good filmmaker, find out even that his code name was the Ghost? I mean, is that like on the internet?
That must be public information.
Yes.
The Ghost? Really?
It must be. But also, here's my question. How did this 22-year-old kid who's not a good filmmaker get Starfleet to give him permission to have full access to a Starfleet crew?
That's
earlier in the season, you remember,
crew.
Especially that. Yeah. Earlier in the season, I think it was episode 2, they were like, okay, we have this guy here and we have to cooperate with him. We've been told to do so. So just, go along with it. How did that happen?
I completely agree. And again, the military, even if he found it out, and I don't believe it, the military, think about this. You got the posters, like they had the poster #1 as a recruitment thing for Starfleet. Imagine a poster or a recruitment for Starfleet Medical. Yes, you can learn to train under our doctor, the Ghost. I mean, if that doesn't say assassin, I don't know what does. So Starfleet would never let him publish that. His name was the Ghost.
All of his missions with the Starfleet security are redacted.
Right.
Right.
It like tells you everything. You know, I didn't
Yes,
think about
exactly.
that. That's a very good point.
That
Number
is
of
a
kills
great point.
classified.
For the doctor.
They talked a lot about classified stuff in this documentary.
Right.
There was
Yeah.
way too much of that. And also,
Yeah.
okay, back to Beto and his interviews. He's like talking to La'an and kind of just like out of nowhere, he's like, what does it feel like to kill someone?
Right.
Do you really think you're going to get an answer to that question?
No.
Yeah.
What,
That is
what
like a
kind of-
college kid trying to do a documentary.
like he
Have you
thinks,
murdered someone?
he
What
thinks
does it
he's
feel like?
edgy.
Have you ever fired 2 guns while jumping through the air?
Try and do it. I'm gonna film you.
Oh gosh. Okay, let me get this comment from our buddy Mark. He says, I found it very hard to believe that Pike and the crew were so accepting to help this alien end its own life. Not one crew person objected, not even the doctor or Chapel.
Mm.
Well, they did say that they couldn't help it. I think that was the thing, right? It wasn't that the
Yeah, there wasn't a way to undo.
Sure,
the-
but I mean, with the threat of the Klingons, that the threat of the Klingons was sort of mentioned, and the Klingon
Yes.
involvement was sort of mentioned. But like, I mean, talk about this again just as a TNG episode in that imaginary world where it's a TNG episode. It would have been the Romulans, and you'd have had Worf saying, "But sir, the like sort of have the one voice in the room that's speaking up for the other side." And
Yeah.
we don't get that here. And I mean, the flip version of that here would have been, like he's mentioning, someone who had experiences in the Klingon War saying, we've already been through this war, and if they have a weapon that can kill the Klingons, then so I think that's a valid point, that they had more time to devote to the sci-fi Star Trek story of this episode, then we might have got more of that.
Right.
Before we go to break, I want to follow up what y'all saying with this thing I kept writing in my notes. Is the bad filmmaking seriously is the bad filmmaking evidence of bad writing by the people who wrote this episode, or are they making Beto come off like an inexperienced filmmaker driven too much by his emotions? Are they making him kind of clumsy as a filmmaker on purpose?
That's a very good point, Keith. What you're saying is, are they bad writers, or are they geniuses because they know how to write a kid who has a chip on his shoulder, who's been given power?
And I don't know which
so
it
good.
is.
Well, I know that Catherine Lynn is one of the co-writers, and she's not a bad writer. She wrote Wedge Dudge for Lower Decks, and she wrote the Lower Decks crossover last season for Strange New Worlds. So is she a bad writer? I would say no.
No.
Whether that was deliberate in making the episode that let's make this a documentary and make the documentary from the perspective of this young person and make that evident in the incompetence of the filmmaking, then maybe, that's like 4D chess they're playing in the writing room. But if that's true, then my hat's off to them.
Yeah. I have another statement if we come back. Well, I don't know if we want to take a break yet or not, but I have
we can go ahead and take a break.
Apparently we're going to have a break because Keith has decreed it to be so.
Break.
Oh my gosh. Okay, hang on. Let me figure out what we're going to do for our little break, because I have no idea. Hang on, I got to find my clips. I wasn't quite ready for this yet. Okay, we're going to go with this one.
We can't show you what happens in the Felt Nerdy and Dirty show, but we can show you the people responsible. Charles Kelso, Veronica Dashel. Felt Nerdy and Dirty. You won't believe your eyes.
And we're back.
Hey.
Oh, that cracks me up.
Yeah, thank you. So where were we?
Well, Keith was going to say some stuff after the break, but wait, Veronica wants to say something.
Go ahead, Veronica.
So I'm backtracking because I couldn't figure out how to wedge myself in. But going back to Spock and things he shouldn't be doing, why is he doing some Klingon Tai Chi stuff?
Well, Vulcans have the Vulcan.
It looked
martial
exactly
arts.
like what Worf was doing, which was literally Tai Chi.
Okay.
But I was like,
yeah, no, it's long established since the 60s that the Vulcans have their own martial arts.
Yeah.
And that, Michael Burnham did Vulcan martial arts. Sarek did Vulcan. That's why Sarek was like prime suspect for breaking that Tellarite's neck. So no, I'm okay with that.
Well, since Veronica brought up, let me jump on and say one thing. People are gonna go, my God, this man nitpicks. do Vulcans yell when they do? Spock going, huh, huh.
Okay.
It just didn't work with
That
me.
I can get behind.
Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they?
Because they're Vulcans, they don't
You
yell.
think it feels emotional?
They're too cool. Yeah.
Okay.
But it was.
I mean,
yeah.
but they're also still spiritual, and that is a way of channeling your chi.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Your Katra in this case.
And, well,
Oh,
okay.
wow.
Sure, why not?
So back follow up what Charles and Alan were saying about some of the things we didn't get to see because Beto was shooting the documentary. I thought it was, to what you guys just said, it was slightly abrupt when they said, okay, this creature needs to kill itself and we're going to help it. I didn't get much. And they were obviously sad, but I didn't get to see the fullness. Remember when, again, when the episode, it was called Galaxy's Child, the one when they killed the creature that attacked. When they killed the mother, Picard got up, went to his ready room. He's like, I gotta get out of here. He was so upset. And here we got a little bit of look because Anson Mount's a great actor. We saw some sadness on his face, but then like 30 seconds later, everybody was in their 10 forward equivalent, and they were all having a birthday party for a Bolian or whatever. And it seemed a little abrupt. It's like he went straight from we're gonna let this creature kill itself, and then we got an interstellar war going on. And then all of a sudden, it's like he had to wrap it up. And then it's like, we're Starfleet. And here's what we represent. And it felt tonally quick.
Yeah. I mean, that's just a product of the edit, of the documentary edit, not the episode edit.
It's Beto's fault again. Beto.
I didn't really have a problem with that so much. It didn't throw me. I don't know.
Well, it's like he didn't give them enough time to show the side that felt bad about letting that creature die.
Yeah.
But then you realize because he had a personal angle, so maybe I don't know. I don't know if he left on the cutting room floor or if he never filmed it. So I don't know.
Right.
Which is interesting.
Well, let me get this comment from Michael Phillip because this leads into exactly the points that I wanted to make about this episode. He says, I also found it the rather pap psychological diagnosis of Beto at the end to be a bit trite and too simplistic. So I have a couple of things about this. First of all, I felt like, he kind of comes to the realization of his basically behind this documentary when he's talking to Uhura, and she says, what you're doing is you're upset about your sister. You almost lost her, and you've got this chip on your shoulder because you think that Starfleet is dangerous and almost got your sister killed. And that seems like, I mean, yes, I can understand that he had an emotional reaction to that, to that situation, and he feels threatened by at least indirectly by that situation. But to then say, I'm going to make a documentary about Starfleet because I'm upset that Ortegas just almost died. That just doesn't seem to connect to me. It seems like, I don't know, like this kind of documentary, and it's done better on other shows, is because there is a conspiracy theorist or someone who has their doubts about Starfleet, about what it means, about what it does, what it says publicly, and how that probably differs from reality. This is just a guy whose sister got hurt. That just doesn't seem to connect.
Was the scene you're talking about, Alan, with Uhura, was that on the documentary?
The whole episode was the documentary, so it must have been.
So that's a weird thing to film and leave in the documentary where he's having a personal confrontation with a crew member. It didn't work for me. That didn't work for me at all. That's a conversation that they would have one-on-one to me.
And then conversely, the result of that is that the last bit of the documentary changes tone completely to where everybody's happy and they're all good people. And he's like, so this is what Starfleet is. Starfleet is a family. And it just seemed like, of course, that's how the documentary is going to end. But it seemed like it just got there too quickly and it didn't really build to that. And I don't believe the transition that Beto makes to get to that conclusion. I think it's too sudden. And again, it's a 45-minute episode, so it's not even a full documentary. It's a short documentary. And you have to make allowances for the heavy edit that it got to get to a 45-minute format. But at the same time, I just don't feel like narratively that worked at all.
They should have let the documentary episode be a documentary length, like an hour and a half.
I think this was the shortest Strange New Worlds episode. It's like 37 minutes long or something.
Oh gosh!
Yeah,
wow.
it was short. Yeah,
I didn't notice that. That's really surprising.
Yeah, Alan, what you're saying was what I was meaning earlier. I agree with you. When he went from kind of dealing with the tragedy of the creature killing herself, and then next thing you know, the picture shifted, and he was like, "Oh, they're a family and they're having a party." And you're right, there was a tonal shift. And I almost think even if he was going to have the right to say that about how it's a family. Another one of my pet peeves is I would rather in that case he had done most of the documentary on Pike and Number One and how they are dealing with it, because that's where the command decisions are being made.
Right.
That might have allowed us more for him to have a more of a respect for Starfleet. Then again, I like Spock and Uhura and La'an in them, but sometimes they carry too much of the show for me, and that's a personal thing. I wish Pike and Number One carried the show more.
Yes.
And I wish they had in this episode as well.
Yeah. Now, one thing that I did really like about the documentary format is they sort of shifted everybody into a little more professional when they were on camera than we often get.
Yeah.
There's less of the silliness. It was more, we're at our battle stations, we're doing our jobs, those kind of scenes. Where you tend to get a little more levity and a little more hijinks on this show. And like Spock, I mean, throughout seemed like a more serious Spock. He has for the last couple of weeks, but this one I noticed it in particular. There were some subtle things, like in the beginning when he brought La'an the coffee, that you'll notice, but there wasn't a lot of the overly emotional. I mean, I guess it was overly emotional in some of the respects, but I don't know. It just felt like there was a little tighter, more professional crew when we saw them doing their jobs than we often get, and I thought that was good.
Yeah, I agree with that completely.
If you remember toward the beginning of the episode, Michael Phillips started by saying that this is probably his favorite episode of the season. Now he says, the more we discuss this, the less it holds up. We're so sorry, Michael.
No, I still think it's a very enjoyable episode to watch.
Absolutely.
Oh, I loved it. I
Well,
really enjoyed it.
but we are going to pick it apart. I mean, that's sort of what we do. So speaking of that, though, real quick, I want to make sure we get to the most important thing, which is at the very beginning of this documentary, they put the Enterprise is 442 meters and 190,000 gross tons. Now, the 190,000 gross tons they kept from the Franz Joseph. That comes from the technical manual. But the original length of the Enterprise was 288.8 meters.
Yes.
And that's been sort of the accepted fan canon all this time since the 70s. But they revised that for the Strange New Worlds and Discovery Enterprise to 442 meters. So now it's canon that the Enterprise is 442 meters in length, but lighter by percentage, I guess, but because it's still the same gross tonnage as the Prime Universe Enterprise. I know I'm not supposed to say that, but the TOS Enterprise in the Strange New Worlds universe is larger.
I wrote that down as well, Charles. I'm glad you. Well, no, I agree with Charles because the Enterprise. Yeah, the Enterprise on the Kirk is like 800 and something feet long, 820 feet or something like that. The Enterprise on the Picard is something like 1,600 feet. So basically, this Enterprise is approaching the size of Picard's Enterprise, but 200 people on it, whereas Picard had 1,000.
Yeah,
Pike did have 200 in the original series, and then Kirk had 400. That ship's got a lot of space on it.
Well, it does. We can. I mean, you can see that has holds up to what we see on screen.
Yeah,
there's a lot of space on it.
Yeah.
Let's see. Mark has, on a side note, when was the last time Pike called Una number one?
Well, Mark, they're not on the screen.
Yeah,
Mark, they're not on screen enough to really have any conversations. Honestly, I mean, that's becoming a problem for me. They're not on
at this
screen
point.
enough.
I wonder if they even know each other.
Yeah.
Anyway.
What did you guys think about the scene when La'an was doing her little shooting and stuff like that? It was really. It was really weird because she talked about, all the bad stuff she went through. And then when she finished her little target practice, she was actually kind of smiling. It was just an odd little moment for me. I mean, she's happy she did good at her target practice. It just was kind of not in concert with the seriousness of the questions. And like you said, when he was like, "Hey, how many people have you killed?" I mean, who's gonna answer that question?
I
To
thought
be fair, he wasn't asking her the question while he was filming that specific thing.
Yeah.
He used her
right.
question as a voiceover over
Yes.
that.
Mm.
So,
But at the same time, I thought she was aiming at one of his cameras.
yeah,
And that's why she smiled, because she turned to the other camera and kind of gave a grin. That's what I thought.
Oh, okay. I like that.
see that?
I
Yeah,
was just surprised that she seemed to be firing full power blast and blowing up drones.
yeah.
When usually you see their target practices like a pew pew,
Yeah.
like you're practicing the target. You don't crank your phaser up to full power for target practice. That's a good way for an accident to happen.
Back to Mbinga real quick, and a real serious question. I didn't serve in the military. But again, if you have your doctor, now, of course, the Enterprise is the flagship of the Federation, and the chief medical officer, do you think the military would let somebody publish that the doctor's code name was Ghost? And like you guys are saying, you had like kills, whatever missions redacted. And then would they let him publish a document where he asked him some really kind of leading questions? And he's like, I don't recall. I don't know. I don't think that would get out.
No,
I just don't think so.
I don't think this entire episode would have made it to the tutorial level.
Yeah.
I feel like this is what he made to submit, and it never came out.
Okay.
Yeah, that's very possible.
I don't know if Elaine and Matter with the so slight spoiler, Veronica, what you just said reminds me of Deep Space Nine. I'll just leave it here. Remember Wayoon and Jake Sisko later on?
You're not that naive.
Yes. You keep writing and we'll see about that.
Right.
Wouldn't it be great? Yeah, wouldn't it be great if the documentary never left anywhere? It's like on his camera and that's it.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so here's another comment from Mark. He says there is a great shot where number one is standing next to Pike in the captain's seat with her one leg up on the step. I wanted to screenshot that and make it a poster out of it. I didn't notice that.
Mark, I agreed. It was so cool because, man, I tell you, sometimes actors, just the way he sat and the way she stood, that scene told you everything about the relationship. He's the captain. That's his number one. It was an awesome scene. And again, I've said this like 10,000 times, and I was like, can I please have more of them on screen? It was a great scene. It's a great scene.
Yeah.
But isn't this the one that was directed by Frakes? It's not?
No. Frakes directed the murder mystery one. The holodeck.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Never mind. Because whatever he's describing that I didn't notice, it sounds like one of the ways that, Riker used to stand on the bridge.
Right.
And I thought he probably directed her to do that. Hey, why don't you try this?
It's a really good little scene. It's a really good little scene. Now, something else I did like was the subtleties here. I did like the couple of times when Uhura was basically kind of nicely saying, are we really going to do this? And I love the way Pike very gently but firmly said, you got a problem with this? It's the mission. We'll do what's ordered. I love the way that kind of came off. I thought that was pretty cool. And even though I hate the fact they're talking about Spock's mind meld now already, I did love the kind of subtlety because I didn't even notice, and I love that kind of subtlety. I didn't even notice if Spock's hand was actually trembling, but it was kind of cool that she kind of said that. Kind of cool.
Although in a later scene, he goes to sick bay and Chapel is like, so Spock, I hear that you were having some trouble on the bridge. Who ratted him out? Like, why are you telling stuff about somebody else like that?
Whoever, same person who told him that Mbinga's the ghost, and
it wouldn't be hard for someone to find out, though. There's apparently 147 cameras on the bridge. If anyone has access to any of the bridge feeds, then we can watch what's going on the bridge from every possible angle.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
I thought that was pretty wild too.
Well, did you guys notice that they changed the aspect ratio for this episode? Where typically Strange New Worlds has a more cinematic aspect ratio. It's like 2.35 to 1 or 2.4 to 1. And where you had the black bars at the top and bottom, so it's wider, like the picture's wider like a movie. And this one was the regular 16:9 frame.
Yeah.
The entire smart TV. Yeah.
I did not notice that.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
I don't notice stuff like that though.
Oh.
Yeah. I noticed that as well.
Okay. Here is a final comment from Mark. Wait, no, we already got that one. Never mind. I thought that was a new one.
Okay.
Moving on.
But no, I thought this was an enjoyable episode. I mean, like we said, we'll sit here and pick it apart. That's sort of what we do, is look at it in very close detail. And but yeah, I thought it was fun. I would have liked to have had more of the Star Trek adventure that was going on.
Me too.
But like I say, I did like sort of the focus on the characters being professionals and doing their jobs. That sometimes you get and sometimes you don't. But I thought they did a good job of that in this one. And I liked some of the interesting angles and close-ups on things that you don't usually get close-ups on. I thought that was well done. And they have a detailed enough set where they can just put a camera right up close against something, where you might not have wanted to do that, say, in the TNG days. You don't want to get that camera too close to one of those backlit displays, because if the illusion falls apart. And they don't have that problem here because their stuff is such high quality. So I thought that part was cool.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, technically, I thought this was a wonderful episode. I really enjoyed watching it.
And for the most part, I think they did a good job. That's the hard part with like found footage or documentary style like movies, is justifying why this character is on camera at this moment.
Right.
There's sometimes where it strains your credibility, and there were times here where like Spock and La'an's date. I find it hard to believe that they would allow that little drone to fly around filming them meeting up for a candlelit meditation date or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like that was the one that took me out of it the most. But for the most part, there'd be a graphic on the screen indicating where you're seeing this from, or it would be obviously Beto's camera hiding or floating around. So I think for the most part, they did a very good job of justifying the filmmaking nature of it.
Yeah.
The funny thing is that this whole documentary was on an adventure that we had not seen,
Right?
whereas we saw him filming throughout the season, and there's lots of material that was shot in other episodes that you don't see any evidence of here.
Right.
I mean, not there was the date, of course, but then there were little bits of other command structure meetings and all that kind of stuff that could have been included,
Right?
but weren't. Because it's the whole thing focused on this one adventure.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So do you think it would have been better if you saw him filming over the course of multiple episodes, and then when you saw the finished documentary, you saw some other story that was going on amongst those episodes?
Yes.
Yeah.
And also because if he is trying to make a point, using that footage that he shot in a skewed way would have been great.
Oh, sure.
Like taking things out of context and recontextualizing other things that people say or whatever. I think that would have been a great. And I wish this had been a true documentary of somebody who really does doubt Starfleet and end on not on a we're all a big family kind of ending, but something that could possibly damage Starfleet, and see how that falls out over the course of either the rest of this season or spill into next season.
Yeah, I agree. The tonal shift at the end where he goes from whatever to the party, it was way too much of a tonal shift. I actually was thinking when I heard about this episode that this was going to be the season finale. Of course, the season finale will probably be a cliffhanger, but this would probably work better. Well, gosh, there's only 10 episodes, right? But I think this would work better as a finale to kind of sum up, like Alan said. Let him be embedded, because we've all seen real life embedded footage from real life wars. Let him be embedded throughout the season and give us this at the end of the season. I think it would have worked better, covering other stuff.
Yeah. So speaking of next week, and earlier we were talking about silliness and hijinks. That's what we get next week. We get an episode called 4.5 Vulcans.
That's right.
Yippee skippy.
And everyone gets to wait an extra week for our thoughts on it.
Right. Because we're going to be at DragonCon.
DragonCon. So what all do you guys have going on at DragonCon? Yeah, I know.
You can start because your thing comes first.
Yeah, so Subspace Rhapsody Picture Show. Very exciting announcement this week. We are in a significantly larger room. We are in a Marriott ballroom. We're not in the Marriott ballroom on the atrium level, where they have the super big panels, but we're in the Imperial Ballroom, which is on the ground floor right across from the Walk of Fame, for those of you who are familiar with the DragonCon layout. But this is a significant upgrade, and if I'm remembering this room correctly, there is options to be able to show both the show and a zoomed in version of the cast. So you're not just watching the show and everyone in the far back. All you can see is the episode on the screen. You can't really see what's going on the TV or on the stage. So I'm very excited about that, but line up early. If I remember correctly, the line for this one actually starts outside unless you have a disability pass. So figure out where that line is. It's Friday at 5:30 p.m. It's not up against any famous people there's obviously there's other stuff going on constantly. But there's no famous person it's up against. So come out and see us. Line up as soon as the other panel files in. And it's gonna be awesome.
And then Saturday, we're doing our adult Star Trek show at 10 p.m. in the Star Trek track. Sunday at 1 o'clock. We've got 2 family-oriented shows, with at 1 o'clock in the Star Trek room, and then at 8:30 across the hall in the Doctor Who room. So we'll be doing those 2 shows on Sunday, and then the Late Night Puppet Slam. And then Monday, because we're glutton for punishment, we're doing a show on Monday. What time is that?
1 p.m.
Oh,
dear. Way too early to be up on Monday after Dragon Con, but we'll be there.
Yeah. Stargate.
Yeah. And
Sci-fi military.
I don't have my schedule in front of me, but I have quite a bit going on. I've got 7 or 8 panels in the Brit Track room, some Doctor Who, some Space 1999, something on Regency dramas, Downton Abbey and those kind of things. And I've got 2 or 3 in the Star Trek room. And I've got one over in the horror track, not an X-Files, a Twin Peaks panel, which I'm very excited about. So I'm going to be a busy boy.
Awesome.
My partner's going to, be sad that we don't get to do much stuff together.
Right.
He should do panels too.
Well, he manages guests.
Okay.
And this year he is the handler for Simon Pegg.
Ooh.
Oh,
what?
Ooh.
Oh, he's got plenty, but Simon Pegg's not going to be there for the whole weekend. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Keith, are you coming to Dragon Con this year?
That's up in the air. I may have some stuff I have to do instead. There's work and life. I plan to, but I don't know.
Well, where else can people find you online?
Oh, me? Facebook, primarily the ESO Network Facebook groups. Can't believe you saw that transition.
And how about you, Alan?
Cosmic Creative, KOZMIC creative.com. I have got 2 new Doctor Who books that are coming out, and I'm going to have information about that online very soon. I got the test prints in the mail today. I've got 2 copies of, it's a 2-volume book. I've got 2 copies of both issues. So I'm going to be using one set to show off at panels, and the other set that I'm going to be going through and marking up heavily as I want to revise these things before they go to a final print. But that'll be soon. And we got a last couple of comments from our buddy Bill, who is he's going to be watching most of Dragon Con on DC TV. And if anybody is interested in such a thing, that's only $10 that you can get a membership to watch all of Dragon Con for the entire weekend.
All of, but most of pretty much all the big celebrity panels and a couple other small things.
Yeah, and all the archive stuff on a separate feed.
Yeah.
And then he says, asks if Garrett Wong must be proud of the Dragon Con staff badge. I'm guessing he has.
Yeah, because he's the track director for the Trek track.
Yep.
But yeah.
All right, sorry. Now, where can people find more of you two?
FeltNerdy.com.
And?
Monkeying Around, a podcast about the monkeys.
And do you have a closing for us this week?
Yes, I went and found another one. Hold on.
Good job.
You can't prepare for the unknown. Face it. Deal with it. That's it. End of story.
Awesome.
And end of episode.
Boom.
Come see us at Infinite Realities.
Yeah.
November the 27th.
And Dragon Con.
And Dragon Con.
Right.
Thanks all.
All right. Everybody take care. See you next Thursday. No,